Poorly dressed man went to the bank to withdraw money, but they wouldn't let him in. And a few days later, something happened. The rising sun cast its first rays over the city of Millbrook, a vibrant and constantly evolving metropolis. In the heart of the financial district stood the imposing Horizonte Financial Building, a bank that for decades had been synonymous with reliability and tradition. Its glass and steel walls reflected the morning light, creating a spectacle of colors that caught the eye of everyone passing by on the busy Avenida Central. Inside the bank, the air was full of expectation. It was a Monday like any other. But for Thomas Clark, the rigorous general manager, every day was a new opportunity to maintain the excellence that Horizonte Financial had always represented. Thomas, a middle-aged man with meticulously combed grey hair and an impeccable suit, walked through the corridors with firm steps, his watchful eye examining every detail. While the employees prepared for another day's work, Thomas made his morning rounds, making sure everything was in order. He paused for a moment in front of one of the huge windows overlooking the street, watching the constant stream of people passing by. His reflection in the glass showed a serious face, marked by years of dedication and responsibility. "Good morning, Mr. Clark," greeted Emily Watson, a young cashier who had just arrived. Emily, in her early 20s, with her brown hair up in an elegant bun and bright green eyes, was the opposite of Thomas in many ways. While he represented tradition and caution, Emily was the symbol of the new generation, enthusiastic, innovative, and always up for a challenge. "Good morning, Miss Watson," Thomas replied with a brief nod. "I hope you're ready for another productive day." Emily smiled, adjusting the strap of her handbag. "Always, sir." "I have a good feeling about today." Thomas arched an eyebrow, a habit he had when something intrigued him. "Feelings don't pay the bills, Miss Watson. Focus and dedication, those are the pillars of success." Before Emily could reply, their attention was drawn to the bank's main entrance. A man, visibly out of place in the sophisticated atmosphere of Financial Horizon, was trying to get through the revolving door. His clothes were simple, almost threadbare. A faded plaid shirt, worn jeans, and worn-out shoes. His unkempt hair and unshaven beard contrasted dramatically with the polished atmosphere of the bank. Mike Johnson, the burly security guard manning the entrance, quickly intercepted the man. "Sir, I'm afraid I can't allow you in. We have a strict dress code here at Horizonte Financial." The man, who would later turn out to be Alex, looked confused and a little annoyed. "But I just need to make a simple transaction." "That's discrimination." Thomas, who was watching the scene from afar, approached with determined steps. "Is there a problem here, Mike?" The security guard straightened up, his posture becoming even more rigid in the presence of the manager. "Nothing I can't handle, Mr. Clark. Just a customer who doesn't conform to our dress code." Thomas examined Alex from top to bottom, his critical eye not missing a single detail. "Sir, I'm sorry, but Mike is correct. We have standards to maintain here at Financial Horizon. I suggest you return when you're dressed appropriately." Alex looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Thomas's firm gaze made him back down. With a sigh of frustration, he turned around and left, casting one last glance inside the bank before disappearing into the crowd on the street. Emily, who had been watching the whole scene, felt a pang of empathy for the rejected man. She hesitantly approached Thomas. "Mr. Clark, don't you think we were a little too harsh? He really seemed to need the bank's services." Thomas turned to Emily, his gaze penetrating. "Miss Watson, rules exist for a reason. Horizon Financial has built its reputation over decades. We can't compromise our standards for a single exception." Emily nodded, although she wasn't entirely convinced. As she walked back to her counter, she couldn't help but think of the man and the look of disappointment on his face. The next few days were marked by a series of intriguing events. Emily, ever vigilant, began to notice a recurring presence in the vicinity of the bank. The same man who had been barred, Alex, appeared frequently, sometimes from across the street, sometimes sitting on a nearby bench, always watching the Financial Horizon with an interest that went beyond casual curiosity. Intrigued and a little worried, Emily decided she needed to understand what was going on. One afternoon, after her shift, she spotted Alex sitting in a cafe near the bank. Taking courage, she approached him. "Hello," said Emily, trying to sound casual. "You're the man who tried to break into the bank the other day, aren't you?" Alex seemed surprised to be approached, but a warm smile soon appeared on his face. "Yes, it's me, Alex Thompson, and you must be one of the employees." Emily nodded, taking a seat in the vacant chair opposite Alex. "Emily Watson, I hope you don't mind my curiosity, but I've noticed that you've been watching the bank quite often. Is everything all right?" Alex hesitated for a moment, his eyes scrutinizing Emily as if assessing whether he could trust her. Finally, he spoke. "Actually, I'm doing a sort of evaluation." "Evaluation?" Emily leaned in, puzzled. "What kind of evaluation?" Alex took a sip of his coffee before answering. "Let's say I'm interested in better understanding how Financial Horizon works, its policies, its security, its approach to clients." Emily frowned, a mixture of curiosity and concern growing inside her. "That sounds a bit suspicious. You're not an investigative journalist, are you?" Alex laughed, a genuine sound that somehow reassured Emily. "No, nothing so dramatic. Let's just say that I have a professional interest in the workings of financial institutions." Before Emily could ask any more questions, her phone vibrated with a message. It was a notice from Thomas Clark calling an urgent meeting for the following morning. "Sorry, I have to go," said Emily, getting up. "It was interesting talking to you, Alex." Alex nodded, his smile enigmatic. "You too, Emily. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon." The next morning, the atmosphere at Horizonte Financial was tense. The employees gathered in the main conference room, anxious murmurs filling the air. Thomas Clark entered, his face more serious than usual. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice cutting through the hubbub. "I have called this meeting to discuss a matter of extreme importance. We have received information that there may be a criminal threat directed at our bank." A heavy silence fell over the room. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine, her mind immediately returning to Alex and his suspicious behavior. Thomas continued, "We don't have any concrete details yet, but I want everyone to stay alert. Any suspicious activity, no matter how small, should be reported immediately. We will increase our security measures and all procedures will be reviewed." As the meeting continued, with Thomas detailing the new security measures, Emily couldn't fully concentrate. Her mind was filled with doubts. Was Alex part of this threat? Or was it just a coincidence? After the meeting, Emily decided she had to act. She couldn't keep her suspicions to herself, but she also didn't want to accuse Alex without knowing for sure. She decided that she would try to talk to him again, this time looking for more concrete answers. During her lunch break, Emily left the bank, her eyes scanning the streets in search of Alex. To her surprise, she found him easily, sitting in the same cafe as the day before. "Alex," she called out, approaching with determination. "We need to talk." Alex looked up from the laptop he was typing on, seeming genuinely surprised by Emily's appearance. "Emily, what a pleasant surprise. Please have a seat." Emily sat down, her eyes fixed on Alex. "I'll be straightforward. The bank is on alert due to a possible criminal threat, and you've been around watching, asking questions. I need to know, do you have anything to do with this?" Alex was silent for a moment, his face a mask of calm. Then, to Emily's surprise, he smiled. "Emily, your insight is admirable. You're right to be worried, but I can assure you that I'm not a threat to the bank. In fact, I'm here to help." Emily frowned, confused. "Help? What do you mean?" Alex closed his laptop and leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I'm going to trust you, Emily, because I believe you really care about the well-being of the bank and its customers. I'm a security consultant. I was hired to assess Financial Horizon's vulnerabilities." The revelation took Emily by surprise. "But why all this secrecy? Why didn't you identify yourself from the start?" Alex sighed, running his hand through his disheveled hair. "Part of the assessment involves testing how the bank handles different situations. My initial approach, dressed inappropriately, was a test, and I must say the security guard and Mr. Clark passed with flying colors in that regard." Emily processed the information, a mixture of relief and confusion taking hold of her. "So you're not a threat, but you're identifying possible threats." "Exactly," confirmed Alex. "And unfortunately, I found several security flaws that need to be addressed urgently, but I need more time before I present my findings to Mr. Clark." Emily hesitated, torn between relief at knowing Alex wasn't a threat and concern about the aforementioned security breaches. How much more time do you need? Alex considered for a moment. A few days at most. I'm finalizing my report and I want to make sure I've covered all the angles. Emily nodded slowly. I understand. But Alex, please be careful. The bank is on high alert right now. If you're caught doing anything suspicious, Alex smiled, a glint of determination in his eyes. And don't worry, Emily. I know what I'm doing, and I appreciate your discretion. It's comforting to know that the bank has employees as dedicated as you. With that, Emily stood up, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. As she walked back to the bank, she couldn't help but feel a little proud that she had solved part of the mystery. But a small voice in the back of her mind still wondered if there was more to the story than Alex was revealing. The next few days were tense on the financial horizon. News of a possible threat had spread among the staff, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and caution. Thomas Clark seemed stricter than ever, his watchful eyes scrutinizing every move inside the bank. Emily, for her part, found herself in a delicate position. Keeping Alex's secret made her uneasy, especially seeing the growing concern of her colleagues. She watched Alex from afar, noticing how he continued his discreet surveillance of the bank, always making notes in his notebook. One particularly busy afternoon, an incident broke the bank's tense routine. A man wearing a dark overcoat and sunglasses entered Horizonte Financiero. His posture was strange, almost furtive, and he seemed to avoid eye contact with everyone. Mike, the security guard, immediately went on alert. He approached the man cautiously. "Sir, can I help you?" The man looked startled, turning sharply towards Mike. I just need to make a withdrawal," he stammered, his hand trembling slightly as he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. The sudden movement made Mike react instinctively. In the blink of an eye, he pinned the man against the wall, causing a commotion in the bank lobby. "Security! Everyone stay calm!" shouted Thomas, rushing to the scene. It was at that moment that Alex, who had been standing outside watching, decided to act. He quickly entered the bank, addressing Thomas directly. "Mr. Clark," said Alex urgently, "can I speak to you in private? It's about bank security." Thomas, still focused on the incident with Mike, gave Alex a confused look. "Who are you? This isn't a good time." "My name is Alex Thompson. I'm a security consultant, and I have crucial information about your bank's vulnerabilities," Alex insisted, his voice low but firm. The mention of vulnerabilities immediately captured Thomas's attention. He hesitated for a moment, looking between Alex and the situation with Mike, which now seemed under control. The suspicious man was being escorted to a private room for questioning. "Very well, Mr. Thompson. My office now," said Thomas, his voice tense. As Thomas and Alex made their way to the office, Emily watched the scene, her heart racing. She knew this was the moment Alex had been waiting for, and she couldn't help feeling anxious about what would be revealed. In Thomas's office, Alex quickly presented his credentials and explained his presence at the bank over the last few weeks. Thomas listened carefully, his expression fluctuating between surprise and concern. "Mr. Clark," Alex began, opening his laptop, "in recent weeks I have identified several critical vulnerabilities in the security of Financial Horizon. Allow me to present my findings." For almost an hour, Alex detailed his findings. Flaws in the camera system, blind spots in surveillance, outdated security protocols, and potential cybersecurity risks. Thomas listened intently, taking occasional notes, his face becoming increasingly serious. "Mr. Thompson," said Thomas when Alex had finished his presentation, "I must admit that I'm disturbed by your findings. Why didn't you identify yourself before?" Alex smiled slightly. "Part of the assessment was to observe how the bank dealt with unexpected situations. Your team demonstrated excellent adherence to existing protocols. However, these protocols need to be updated urgently." Thomas nodded, running a hand through his grey hair. "I see. Well, Mr. Thompson, it looks like we have a lot of work ahead of us. I'll call an emergency meeting with the board immediately." Meanwhile, in the bank lobby, Emily was restless. She knew that something important was happening in Thomas's office, but she couldn't help worrying about the possible consequences. It was at this moment that her colleague, Sophie Martinez, approached. Sophie, a woman in her 30s with black hair and piercing brown eyes, was known for her attention to detail and keen intuition. "Emily," she whispered, Have you noticed anything strange in the transaction records recently? Emily frowned. Strange how? Sophie looked around, making sure no one was listening. I've noticed some unusual patterns. Large sums being moved at regular intervals, always to the same offshore accounts. I don't know, but something doesn't seem right. Emily's heart raced. With everything that was happening, this new information seemed even more alarming. Sophie, I think we need to investigate this further, but we have to be discreet. Sophie nodded, determination shining in her eyes. I agree. How about we meet after hours to look into it further? Emily agreed, her mind already working through the possible implications of these suspicious transactions. As the day progressed, Financial Horizon buzzed with nervous energy. Rumors about the emergency board meeting spread quickly, further fueling the employees' anxiety. At the end of the day, Emily and Sophie met at a discreet cafe a few blocks from the bank. They spread copies of records and notes on the table, talking quietly. Look at this, said Sophie, pointing to a series of numbers. These transactions always take place on the third working day of every month. Large sums, always broken down into smaller amounts and sent to different accounts abroad. Emily studied the figures, feeling a knot in her stomach. Does that sound like money laundering? Sophie nodded gravely. That's exactly what I was thinking. But who could be behind it? And how did it go unnoticed for so long? Just then, a familiar voice surprised them both. Ladies, it seems you've made an interesting discovery. Emily and Sophie turned around, surprised to see Alex standing next to their table. Alex, exclaimed Emily, what are you doing here? Alex smiled, pulling up a chair to join them. Let's just say I have a sixth sense for detecting important investigations. Can I take a look? Hesitating, Emily and Sophie shared their findings with Alex. Their eyes widened as he examined the records. This is serious, said Alex, his tone serious. You two have done an impressive job of noticing this. I think it's time we took this information to Mr. Clark. Emily hesitated. But what if someone on the board is involved? Alex nodded, understanding the concern. It's a possibility we can't rule out. But Thomas Clark struck me as a man of integrity. I think we can trust him with this information. The next morning, Emily, Sophie and Alex met in Thomas's office before the bank opened. Thomas's expression became increasingly somber as they presented their findings. This is disturbing, to say the least, said Thomas, his voice laden with concern. You've done well to bring this to my attention. We'll need to conduct an internal investigation immediately and, depending on what we find, get the authorities involved. In the days that followed, Financial Horizon entered a state of controlled unrest. A team of external auditors was brought in to thoroughly examine every transaction from the past few years. Security was tightened, and Thomas implemented many of Alex's recommendations. Emily, Sophie and Alex continued to work together, assisting in the investigation wherever possible. As more evidence was uncovered, it became clear that the money laundering operation was more extensive than initially suspected. Finally, after weeks of intense investigation, Thomas called a general meeting. The air was thick with tension as the employees gathered in the bank's main auditorium. Thomas took to the stage, his face a mask of seriousness. Next to him were Emily, Sophie and Alex. Employees of Financial Horizon, Thomas began, his voice echoing through the silent auditorium. Over the past few weeks, we have conducted an extensive investigation into our operations. It is with deep regret that I announce that we have uncovered evidence of significant illicit activity within our institution. A murmur of shock ran through the audience. Thomas raised his hand, asking for silence. Before I go any further, I'd like to introduce someone to you, said Thomas, gesturing to Alex. This is Alexander Rothschild. The announcement was met with expressions of confusion. Emily and Sophie exchanged surprised glances. Alex, or rather Alexander, stepped forward. Thank you, Thomas. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the majority owner of Horizonte Financial. For the past few weeks, I've been here undercover, conducting a personal assessment of our operations. The auditorium erupted in shocked whispers. Emily felt as if the ground had been lifted from her feet. All this time, Alex was not just a security consultant, but the owner of the bank. Alexander continued. What started as a simple security assessment turned into something much bigger, thanks to the dedication and integrity of employees like Emily Watson and Sophie Martinez. He paused, his gaze sweeping the audience. Unfortunately, we also discovered that some members of our team were involved in illegal activities. These people have already been identified and will be handed over to the relevant authorities. Thomas took the floor again. Over the next few days, Financial Horizon will undergo a significant restructuring. We will implement new security protocols, conduct a thorough review of our practices, and work tirelessly to restore the trust that has been broken. Alexander added, I want to assure all of you that Financial Horizon will emerge from this crisis stronger and with more integrity than ever before. We are counting on each and every one of you on this journey of rebuilding. As the meeting continued, detailing the next steps and answering questions from employees, Emily reflected on the events of the last few weeks. She could never have imagined that her initial curiosity about Alex would lead to such a monumental revelation. In the months that followed, Financial Horizon underwent a profound transformation. Alexander Rothschild took on a more active role in day-to-day management, working alongside Thomas to implement the necessary changes. Emily and Sophie were promoted to leadership positions, recognized for their crucial role in uncovering the illicit activities. They led initiatives to train employees in fraud detection and establish new security protocols. The bank faced intense scrutiny from the media and regulatory authorities, but Alexander's transparency throughout the process helped to gradually restore public trust. A year after the revelation, Financial Horizon had been transformed. New security systems were in place, the corporate culture emphasized ethics and transparency, and the bank had become a model of integrity in the financial sector. One sunny afternoon, Emily was in her new office, looking out of the window onto busy Central Avenue. She was reflecting on how her life had changed in the last year when she heard a knock on the door. "Come in," she said, turning to see Alexander entering with a smile. "Emily?" he greeted warmly. "How are things in the compliance division?" Emily smiled. "Great, Mr. Rothschild. We've just finished the new ethics training program for employees." Alexander nodded, pleased. "Excellent. And please, I told you to call me Alex. After all, we were research partners, weren't we?" Emily laughed, remembering the tense days of her undercover investigation. "It's true. Sometimes it's still hard to believe everything that's happened." Alexander walked over to the window, stopping next to Emily. "You know, when I decided to do that undercover assessment, I never imagined I'd find staff as dedicated as you and Sophie. You two have really changed the course of this institution." Emily blushed slightly at the compliment. "We just did the right thing. And that's exactly why you're so valuable," said Alexander. "Financial Horizon isn't just about numbers and transactions. It's about people. People who care, who do the right thing, even when no one is looking." He paused, looking down at the city below. "You know, Emily, I'm thinking of expanding our operations, opening new branches, maybe even internationally, and I'm going to need trustworthy people to lead these initiatives." Emily felt her heart race at the prospect. "That sounds incredible, Alex. I can't wait to see what the future holds for Financial Horizon." Alexander smiled, placing a hand on Emily's shoulder. "The future is bright, Emily, and it's thanks to people like you that we can look to it with confidence." As the two continued to talk, planning the bank's future, Emily couldn't help but feel a wave of pride and gratitude. What had started as an ordinary day at work a year ago had turned into an incredible journey of discovery, integrity, and personal growth. Outside, the sun was shining over the city of Millbrook, its rays reflecting in the windows of the Financial Horizon. To passers-by, it was just another imposing building in the financial district. But for Emily, Sophie, Alexander, and all the others who had lived through that extraordinary transformation, it was a symbol of resilience, integrity, and the promise of a better future. And so, Horizonte Financiero continued its journey, not just as a financial institution, but as a beacon of ethics and excellence in the business world. The story of its transformation would be told and retold, inspiring others to follow the path of integrity, no matter how difficult it may seem. Emily looked out of the window once more, a soft smile on her lips. She knew that no matter what the future held, she would be ready to face it, armed with the courage to do the right thing and the determination to keep making a difference one day at a time. And that's how Horizonte Financiero, once on the brink of scandal, became a shining example of how integrity, courage, and dedication can transform not only an institution, but also the lives of all those who are part of it. At this point, I'd like to pause the narrative briefly to ask viewers to comment from where they're watching the video and to subscribe to the channel if they're enjoying the story. Your participation is very important to us. Now let's get on with our story. In the years that followed, Horizonte Financial continued to thrive under the leadership of Alexander Rothschild and the dedication of employees like Emily and Sophie. The bank's reputation as a bastion of integrity in the financial world attracted new clients and talent, allowing for constant and sustainable expansion. Emily, now Director of Corporate Compliance and Ethics, was sitting in her office one fall morning, reviewing the latest audit reports. Her phone rang, interrupting her concentration. "Emily Watson speaking," she answered. "Emily, it's Alex. Can you come to my office? We have an important matter to discuss." Intrigued, Emily made her way to Alexander's office. Upon entering, she found not only Alex but also Sophie and Thomas, all with serious expressions. "What's going on?" asked Emily, feeling a twinge of concern. Alexander motioned for her to sit down. "Emily, we've received some worrying news. The former employees who were fired and sued for their involvement in the illegal activities are filing a class action lawsuit against the bank." Emily felt her blood run cold in her veins. Class action? On what basis? Sophie leaned forward, her eyes reflecting everyone's concern. "They're claiming that they were unfairly dismissed and that the bank violated their employment rights by allowing Alex to disguise himself and trick them." Thomas, who had remained as general manager after the restructuring, added, "They are also questioning the legality of our internal investigation." Emily processed the information, her mind already working through the possible implications. "That's complicated. But we have all the documentation of the investigation, right? And we followed all the legal protocols during the process." Alexander nodded. "Yes, we were meticulous at every step. But they're banking on public sympathy. They're painting themselves as the victims of an impersonal, manipulative corporation. And unfortunately," Sophie added, "the media seems to be taking the bait. There are already sensationalist headlines circulating." Emily frowned, her determination growing. "So we need to tell our story, show the public and the court that our actions were necessary and justified." "Exactly," said Alexander, a slight smile appearing on his face. "That's why we've called you here, Emily. We want you to lead our defense team in this case." Emily blinked in surprise. "Me? But I'm not a lawyer." Thomas leaned forward. "No, but you know this institution better than anyone. You've been at the center of everything since the beginning. What's more, your integrity and commitment to ethics are exactly what we need to face these charges." Emily looked at each of them, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also a wave of determination. "Right, I'll do it. Where do we start?" In the weeks that followed, Emily plunged headlong into preparing for the case. She worked tirelessly with the bank's legal team, reviewing every detail of the original investigation, taking statements from employees and preparing a robust defense. The case attracted considerable media attention. Journalists flocked to the front of Horizonte Financial every day, hoping for any crumb of information. Emily, following the advice of the public relations team, kept a low profile, avoiding making any direct comments on the pending case. Finally, the day of the trial arrived. The courtroom was packed with journalists, onlookers, and, of course, the parties involved. Emily, dressed in an impeccable navy blue suit, sat next to the bank's lawyers, her face a mask of calm determination. The ex-employee's lawyer opened the case with an impassioned speech, painting his clients as victims of a cold and calculating corporation that didn't hesitate to violate the privacy and rights of its employees in the name of profit. When it was the defense's turn, Emily stood up, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she began, "the case before us today is not about an impersonal corporation against helpless individuals. It's about integrity, responsibility, and the duty we have as a financial institution to protect the interests of our clients and society as a whole." Emily went on to meticulously detail how the investigation was conducted, emphasizing that every step was taken in strict compliance with the law and banking regulations. She presented evidence of the illicit activities uncovered, showing how they endangered not only the bank, but the entire financial system. Mr. Rothschild didn't go undercover on a whim or to fool honest employees, Emily continued. He did so because he suspected something was deeply wrong and wanted to see for himself, without the filter of the corporate hierarchy. And it was thanks to this action that we were able to uncover and put an end to a money laundering scheme that had gone undetected for years. Over the weeks of the trial, Emily and the bank's legal team presented a solid case. Witnesses were called, including Sophie, Thomas, and even Alexander, who spoke openly about his motivations and actions. The ex-employee's lawyers countered, questioning the ethics of Alexander's disguise and arguing that the bank had violated its employees' privacy. But for every argument, Emily and her team had a well-founded response. Finally, after weeks of testimony and arguments, it was time for the verdict. The courtroom was completely silent when the judge began to speak. After careful consideration of the evidence and arguments presented by both parties, the judge said, his voice echoing through the room, "This court concludes that Horizon Financial acted within the bounds of the law and its fiduciary responsibilities." A murmur went through the room, but the judge continued. Mr. Rothschild's actions, while unconventional, were motivated by a genuine concern for the integrity of the institution. The subsequent investigation was conducted in a legal and ethical manner, revealing criminal activities that posed a serious threat not only to the bank, but to the financial system as a whole. The judge paused, looking directly at Emily and the bank staff. This court commends the courage and integrity shown by Horizonte Financial in facing this difficult situation. How the dismissals of the employees involved in illegal activities were justified and carries with current labor laws. With that, the judge banged his gavel, closing the case in favor of Horizonte Financiero. The courtroom erupted in a hubbub of voices. Emily felt a wave of relief and emotion sweep through her body. She turned to her team, exchanging and handshakes. Alexander approached, a broad smile on his face. "Emily, you were incredible. We couldn't have done it without you." Emily smiled back, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and elation. "It was a team effort, Alex. We all did it together." In the days that followed, the court's decision dominated the headlines. Horizonte Financiero was widely praised for its transparency and integrity throughout the process. Public confidence in the bank, which was already high, reached new heights. Weeks after the verdict, Alexander called a meeting with Emily, Sophie, and Thomas in his office. "First, I want to thank you all again," he began. "What we achieved was not just a legal victory, but an affirmation of everything we've built over the last few years." Everyone nodded, feeling the weight and importance of the moment. "But we can't rest on our laurels," Alexander continued. "This case has shown us that there is still a lot of work to be done in the financial sector as a whole." Emily leaned forward, intrigued. "What do you have in mind, Alex?" Alexander smiled, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I'm thinking of expanding our mission, not just as a bank, but as an agent of change in the financial sector. I want to create a foundation dedicated to promoting ethics and transparency in finance." Sophie nodded enthusiastically. "That's amazing, Alex. We could offer training, develop best practices." "Exactly," said Alexander. "And I want the three of you to lead this initiative with me. Emily, with her experience in compliance and ethics, Sophie, with her keen eye for detail, and Thomas, with his vast experience in bank management." The three exchanged looks of surprise and excitement. "It would be an honor," said Thomas, speaking for everyone. Emily felt a surge of emotion, from a simple bank teller to the leader of an initiative that could transform the entire financial sector. Her journey had been extraordinary. "Then it is decided," said Alexander, standing up. "From today we are not just Financial Horizon, we are the beginning of a new era of integrity and transparency in the world of finance." As they left Alexander's office, Emily couldn't help but feel a mixture of pride, gratitude, and anticipation for the future. She knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. Outside, the sun was setting over the town of Millbrook, casting a golden glow over the Financial Horizon building. For Emily, it was more than just a bank now. It was a beacon of hope, a symbol that with courage, integrity, and dedication, it was possible not just to change one institution, but to inspire a transformation in an entire industry. And so, as the day drew to a close, Emily, Sophie, Thomas, and Alexander prepared to embark on their new mission. They knew the road would be long and full of challenges, but they were ready to face them, united by their shared vision of a more ethical and transparent financial future. The story of Horizonte Financiero would continue to be written not just in the accounting books and annual reports, but in the hearts and minds of all those who believed in the power of integrity to transform the world. And so, as the city lights began to glow in the falling night, Emily looked out of the office window one last time before heading home. She smiled, knowing that tomorrow would be the first day of a new chapter, not just for her, but for all those who dreamed of a fairer, more ethical financial world. Horizonte Financiero had changed its name, yes, but more than that, it had changed its essence, its purpose. And with this change, a new horizon of possibilities opened up, not just for a bank, but for an entire sector, for an entire society. And with this comforting thought, Emily picked up her bag and left the office, ready to face the challenges and opportunities that the new day would bring. After all, she knew now more than ever that every action, every decision, no matter how small, had the power to make a difference. And she was determined to continue making a difference, one day at a time in financial horizon and beyond.